Security was already marching down the jet bridge, zip ties hanging from their belts, while the murmurs of 200 passengers turned into a dull roar. Captain Rick Halloway stood in the aisle of the Boeing 787, his chest puffed out, pointing a manicured finger at seat 1A. He thought he was removing a stubborn, non-compliant passenger who couldn't afford the ticket. He thought he was restoring order. What he didn't know was that the woman in the hoodie, looking calmly at her watch, hadn't just paid for the seat. At 9 a.m. sharp, the wire transfer had cleared. She didn't just have a ticket. She held the deed to the entire airline. And Captain Halloway was about to have the worst day of his life. The rain at Chicago O'Hare was relentless, a gray sheet hammering against the fuselage of Flight 402 bound for London Heathrow. Inside the cabin of the Ares Atlantic Dreamliner, the air was dry and smelled faintly of recycled coffee and expensive leather. Dr. Nia Toussaint adjusted the noise-canceling headphones over her ears and pulled her oversized gray hoodie tighter. She was exhausted. The last 72 hours had been a blur of boardrooms, encrypted Zoom calls, and aggressive negotiation tactics that would have made a shark blush. Nia was 32, black, and possessed the kind of intellect that scared people. She had made her first billion in proprietary aerospace algorithms and her second in logistical AI. Today, she wasn't looking like a mogul. She was looking like a woman who just wanted to sleep for 8 hours across the Atlantic. She had booked Seat 1A, the most private suite in the new Prestige class cabin, specifically for the solitude. She closed her eyes, waiting for the gentle thrum of the engines. Instead, she heard the sharp click of heels. "Excuse me, you are in my seat." Nia opened one eye. Standing over her was a woman who looked like she was carved out of marble and resentment. She wore a Chanel tweed suit, excessive pearls, and held a boarding pass like it was a weapon. This was Beatrice van der Hoven. Her family had owned steel mills in the 1950s, and she had never let anyone forget it. Nia slid her headphones down. "I beg your pardon?" 1A, Beatrice snapped, waving her pass. "I always sit in 1A. It's the bulkhead. I need the legroom for my sciatica." "You're clearly in the wrong spot, dear." Economy is back through the galley curtain. Nia glanced at the woman's pass. It said 1B. "Ma'am, your ticket says 1B, Nia said, her voice smooth but firm. "That's the aisle seat right there. This is 1A. "I'm already settled," Beatrice scoffed, a wet, ugly sound. She turned around, looking for a flight attendant. "Stewardess, we have a squatter." Sarah Jenkins, the lead flight attendant, hurried over. Sarah was 24, overworked, and terrified of conflict. She looked at Nia, then at the formidable Beatrice. "Mrs. van der Hoven, welcome back," Sarah said, her smile twitching. "Is there a problem?" "This person," Beatrice gestured vaguely at Nia's hoodie and leggings, "is refusing to vacate my usual seat. I want her moved. I don't care where. Put her in the jump seat if you have to." Sarah looked at Nia's digital boarding pass on the console. It was valid, full fare, paid in cash, not miles. "Ma'am," Sarah whispered to Beatrice, "she has a valid ticket for 1A. The flight is full. I can get you a glass of champagne in 1B. It's the same seat configuration." "I do not sit in the aisle," Beatrice hissed, her voice rising. "I am a Diamond Medallion member of Ares Atlantic. My husband plays golf with the Vice President of Operations. Do I need to make a call?" Nia sighed, putting her headphones back on. "I'm not moving, lady. Take your seat." Beatrice turned purple. "This is unacceptable. I want the captain." "Now." Sarah paled. "Mrs. van der Hoven, we are pushing back in 10 minutes. Get the captain." Nia closed her eyes again. She knew exactly who the captain was today. She had read his personnel file 3 hours ago, Captain Richard Rick Halloway. A 20-year veteran with a record of excellent landings, but 3 HR complaints regarding interpersonal conduct that had been mysteriously swept under the rug. The heavy cockpit door clicked open. Captain Rick Halloway stepped into the first-class cabin like he was entering a coliseum. He was a tall man, silver-haired, with the jawline of a soap opera star and eyes that held zero warmth. He adjusted his epaulets, scanning the scene. He saw Beatrice van der Hoven, a woman he recognized as a high-value legacy client. Then he saw Nia. To Rick Halloway, Nia didn't look like a first-class passenger. She looked like a mistake. In his worldview, People who sat in one, wore suits, Rolexes, and carried briefcases. They didn't wear sneakers and hoodies. They certainly didn't look like Nia. What seems to be the issue here, Sarah? Rick's voice was a deep baritone, projected to ensure everyone in the first 5 rows could hear him. Captain, Beatrice interjected before Sarah could speak, stepping close to him and lowering her voice conspiratorially. This woman is refusing to move. You know I need the window for my nerves. And quite frankly, I don't feel comfortable sitting next to her. She's been aggressive. Nia raised an eyebrow. She hadn't moved an inch. Rick looked at Nia. He didn't see a passenger. He saw a nuisance. He saw a delay on his flight time. He saw a non-revenue employee or a lucky upgrade who needed to be put in their place. Miss, Rick said, leaning over the pod wall, I need to see your boarding pass. Nia held up her phone without a word. Rick glanced at it. It was legitimate, but his ego was already committed to the narrative Beatrice had spun. He looked at Beatrice, gave her a reassuring nod, and turned his full attention to Nia. Here's the situation, Rick said, his tone dripping with condescension. Mrs. van der Hoven is a priority passenger. There's been a glitch in the booking system. She was assigned 1A. My app says 1A, Nia said calmly. The gate agent said 1A. The manifest says 1A. There is no glitch. Rick's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being contradicted, certainly not by young women in economy clothing. I'm making an executive decision. I need you to move to seat 1B. Actually, he paused, looking at Beatrice's disgusted face. Sarah, do we have space in Economy Plus? Sarah's eyes widened. Captain, the flight is fully booked. Every seat. Rick looked back at Nia. Okay. Miss, you're going to swap with Mrs. van der Hoven. She takes 1A, you take 1B. End of discussion. No, Nia said. The cabin went silent. A businessman in 2A lowered his newspaper. Rick blinked. Excuse me? I said no, Nia repeated, finally unbuckling her seatbelt and standing up. She wasn't tall, but she had a presence that suddenly made the cabin feel smaller. I paid full fare for this specific seat. I have work to do, and I require the privacy of the window suite. Mrs. van der Hoven can sit in the seat she purchased, or she can deplane and take the next flight. Rick stepped into her personal space. It was an intimidation tactic he'd used on co-pilots for years. Listen to me clearly. I am the captain of this vessel. My word is law when the doors are closed. You are disrupting the flight crew and distressing other passengers. I'm sitting quietly, Nia corrected. She is the one shouting. I am determining that you are a security risk. Rick lied. It was a blatant, dangerous lie, but he knew it usually worked. You are being combative. Now, I am giving you a lawful order. Move seats, or I will have you removed from this plane. Nia looked at him. She studied his face, the arrogance etched into the lines around his eyes. She checked her watch. It was 9:48 a.m. Captain Holloway, Nia said, using his name for the first time. I strongly suggest you go back to the cockpit and run your pre-flight checks. You are already 6 minutes behind schedule for your slot time. Do not make this a legal matter. Rick's face turned a shade of crimson. You don't tell me what to do. You think because you scraped together enough miles for a ticket, you own the plane? Nia almost laughed. Something like that. Get your bags, Rick barked. You're off the flight. The atmosphere in the cabin was electric. Beatrice was smirking, already settling her handbag onto the console of seat 1A, assuming victory was imminent. I'm not getting off, Nia said, sitting back down and buckling the belt. The metallic click echoed in the silence. Rick turned to Sarah. Call the gate. Tell them we need airport police. We have a non-compliant passenger refusing to deplane. Sarah hesitated. Captain, she's really not doing anything. Do it, Sarah, or I'll write you up for insubordination too. Sarah rushed to the galley phone, her hands shaking. Rick stood over Nia, crossing his arms. You've made a big mistake, sweetheart. You're going to be blacklisted. You'll never fly Aries Atlantic again. I know the VP of Operations personally. I'm going to make sure your name is flagged in the national database. Nia pulled out her phone. She didn't call a lawyer. She opened a secure app, a trading terminal linked to the London Stock Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange. You really should worry about your own status, Captain, Nia murmured, tapping the screen. Are you recording me? Rick demanded, seeing the phone. That is a violation of federal privacy laws. I'm not recording you, Nia said, her eyes glued to the data stream. I'm checking the wire. It's pending. What are you babbling about? Beatrice interjected from the aisle. Just drag her off. 2 minutes later, 2 Chicago police officers and a TSA supervisor squeezed onto the plane. They looked wet, annoyed, and ready to drag someone out. Where's the problem? The older officer asked, his hand resting near his belt. Right here, Rick pointed at Nia. Refusing crew instructions. Belligerent. I want her off my aircraft immediately. The officer looked at Nia. She looked calm, professional, and entirely unbothered. Ma'am, the officer said, the captain has the right to refuse transport. You have to grab your things and come with us. We can sort out a refund at the counter. I'm not asking for a refund, Nia said. And I'm not leaving. Officer, I need 5 minutes. At 10 a.m., a transaction clears. If you remove me before then, you will be interfering with a corporate merger valued at $4 billion. I suggest you wait. The officer blinked. A merger? Ma'am, this is a United Airlines flight. No, Nia corrected. This is Aries Atlantic, Flight 402, and I suggest you ask Captain Holloway why he is kicking off a passenger who has committed no crime other than sitting in her assigned seat. She's aggressive, Rick shouted. She threatened me. I did no such thing, Nia said coolly. I advised you to check your schedule. The officer looked between the manic captain and the calm woman. He sighed. Look, Captain, if she hasn't physically touched anyone, and she's paid. It is my call, Rick roared. I don't feel safe flying with her on board. It's her or me. I will not fly this bird until she is off. Beatrice chimed in. I saw her threaten him. I am a witness. Nia looked at her watch. 9:58 a.m. 2 minutes, Nia whispered. Rick leaned down, his face inches from hers. You think you can bluff your way out of this? I've been flying for 30 years. I am a god in the sky. You are nothing. You're just a girl in a hoodie who doesn't know her place. Nia finally looked angry. The temperature in the cabin seemed to drop 10 degrees. She took off her glasses. My place, Nia said, her voice dropping to a terrifyingly low register, is at the head of the table. And you are about to realize that you are not a god, Captain. You are a chauffeur with a god complex. Officer, arrest her, Rick screamed. She just threatened the safety of the flight. The officer reached for Nia's arm. Okay, ma'am, that's enough. Up, now. Nia stood up, shaking the officer's hand off gently. She held up her phone. The screen flashed green. Transaction complete. Transfer successful. Ownership transfer. Aries Atlantic Holdings is greater than Toussaint Ventures. Wait, Nia said, holding the phone up so Rick could see it. I don't care about your text messages. Rick spat. It's not a text, Nia said. She pressed a speed dial button. The cabin was silent enough that everyone could hear the ringtone. Ring. Ring. A voice answered on speaker. It was loud, clear, and familiar to everyone in the aviation world. It was Jonathan Sterling, the current CEO of Aries Atlantic. Nia? Jonathan's voice crackled through the phone. Congratulations. The lawyers just confirmed it. The money is in. The airline is yours. Welcome aboard, Madam Chairwoman. Nia held the pilot's gaze. Jonathan, thank you. I'm actually on Flight 402 right now at O'Hare. Oh, excellent. How is the service? Terrible, Nia said, never breaking eye contact with Rick. I have a captain here, a Mr. Holloway, who is currently trying to have me arrested because he wants to give my seat to his friend. He's claiming I'm a security threat. There was a long, cold silence on the other end of the line. He's doing what? Jonathan asked. Rick Holloway's face went from red to a ghostly, sickly white. The silence in the first-class cabin was so profound that the hum of the auxiliary power unit sounded like a jet engine. Captain Rick Holloway stared at the smartphone in Nia's hand as if it were a radioactive isotope. Jonathan? Rick stammered, his voice cracking. Mr. Sterling? Captain Holloway. The voice on the speakerphone cut through the air, icy and devoid of the corporate warmth usually reserved for company newsletters. I am staring at the transfer of deed documents right now. As of 9:59 a.m., Aries Atlantic is a subsidiary of Toussaint Ventures. You are currently speaking to the owner and chairwoman of the board. Did you just threaten to arrest her? Rick laughed nervously. It was a jagged, panicked sound. "Sir, with all due respect, this has to be a prank. A deep fake. I'm looking at a girl in a hoodie who—" "Put the phone on the console, Nia," Jonathan said. Nia obliged, placing the device on the leather armrest between her and the standing pilot. "Rick," Jonathan continued, "look at your iPad. The electronic flight bag. Refresh the manifest. Do it now." Rick's hands were shaking so badly he could barely unclasp the iPad from his belt. He tapped the screen, his fingers slipping on the glass. He hit refresh. The spinning wheel of death seemed to last for an eternity. Beatrice van der Hoven, sensing the tectonic shift in the room, slowly picked up her handbag from the console of seat 1A and clutched it to her chest, her eyes darting between the police officer and Nia. Ping. The manifest loaded. Rick stared, his mouth opened, but no sound came out. Usually, the manifest listed names, seat assignments, and loyalty status. Besides seat 1A, where it used to say Toussaint. Nia, no status. It now featured a new code that Rick had never seen in his 20 years of flying. Pax 1A, Toussaint, Nia. Status, owner, chairman. Priority, VVP, code 0. Below that, a system-wide bulletin flashed in red across the top of his screen. Corporate alert, management change effective immediately. All ops report to N Toussaint. Rick looked up. The color had drained from his face so completely that his tan looked like old parchment. "Mr. Sterling," Rick whispered. I didn't know. She didn't look like—" "Stop," Nia said. She didn't shout. She didn't raise her voice. She simply held up a hand, and Rick Halloway, the man who claimed to be God in the sky, fell silent. Nia picked up the phone. "Jonathan, I'll handle it from here. I need you to contact crew scheduling. I need a reserve captain immediately. And tell them to bring a new manifest." "Understood, Madam Chairwoman. I'm so sorry about this. Not your fault, Jonathan. But it is my problem to fix." She hung up. Nia stood up. She smoothed the front of her hoodie. She looked at the police officer, who was currently trying to make himself invisible against the galley wall. "Officer," Nia said, "you can release my arm now." The officer jumped. I wasn't holding it, ma'am. I was just escorting. I apologize. I had no idea. You were doing your job based on false information provided by the flight crew," Nia said graciously. "I don't blame you. However, I do have a request." "Anything, ma'am." "I'd like you to escort a passenger off the plane. They are disrupting the flight and have been verbally abusive to the owner of the airline." Beatrice van der Hoven let out a small shriek. "Now wait just a minute. I didn't know. I am a diamond medallion. You can't just—" "Not you, Beatrice," Nia said, not even looking at her. "Sit down. We'll get to you." Nia turned her eyes to Rick Halloway. "Captain Halloway," Nia said, "get your flight bag, get your jacket, and get off my plane." Rick stared at her, his ego warring with his survival instinct. "You can't do this. I'm the pilot in command, under FAA regulations, until the door is open." "The door is open," Nia pointed to the jet bridge. "And you are no longer the pilot in command. You are a trespasser. You are relieved of duty effectively immediately. If you do not vacate the flight deck in 60 seconds, I will have this officer arrest you for trespassing on private corporate property." Rick looked around the cabin. He looked at Sarah, the flight attendant he had threatened to write up. Sarah was standing by the galley, a look of pure, unadulterated vindication on her face. She gave him a tiny, almost imperceptible wave. "This is wrongful termination," Rick sputtered, grabbing his hat. "I have a union. The ALPA will hear about this. You'll be sued into the ground." "I look forward to the deposition," Nia said. "Now, go." Rick Halloway, stripping off his epaulettes in a fit of rage, stormed past Nia. He bumped her shoulder intentionally as he passed. "Assault," Nia noted calmly to the police officer. "Add that to the report, please." The officer nodded, his hand moving to his radio. "Dispatch, we have a disgruntled employee creating a disturbance. Send backup to gate K4. As Rick was escorted up the jet bridge, shouting about his pension, silence returned to the cabin. Nia sat back down in seat 1A. She looked at Beatrice van der Hoven, who was currently hovering over seat 1B, terrified to sit, terrified to speak. "Mrs. van der Hoven," Nia said softly. Beatrice jumped. Yes, Miss Toussaint? Mrs. Toussaint, ma'am?" You wanted seat 1A because of your sciatica? Is that correct? Beatrice swallowed hard. Well, yes, but I can manage. I can certainly manage in 1B, or economy, or the wing. Nia tapped her fingers on the armrest. I checked the logs while I was waiting for the police. You've flown this route 6 times in the last year. You've sat in 1A every time. And every time, you filed a complaint against the cabin crew to get travel vouchers. You claimed the champagne was warm in March. You claimed the nuts were stale in June. You've racked up $4,000 in compensation by bullying flight attendants. Beatrice turned pale. I have high standards. You have a history of extortion, Nia corrected. And today, you tried to use a bullying captain to kick a paying customer off a flight because you felt entitled. I apologize, Beatrice whispered. I truly do. I don't accept it, Nia said. Sarah? Sarah stepped forward, beaming. Yes, Madam Chairwoman? Please escort Mrs. van der Hoven off the aircraft, refund her ticket in full, and cancel her return trip. You're kicking me off? Beatrice gasped. But I have a gala in London. There are other airlines, Beatrice, Nia said, putting her noise-canceling headphones back on. I suggest you try one where the owner doesn't know your name. Banning you from Aries Atlantic is the first executive order I'm signing today. Beatrice opened her mouth to argue, saw the look in Nia's eyes, and wisely shut it. She grabbed her Chanel bag and scurried off the plane, her heels clicking a frantic retreat. Nia closed her eyes. Sarah, wake me up when the new pilot gets here. And bring me a sparkling water, no ice. Right away, ma'am. The flight to London was smooth, but the turbulence on the ground was just beginning. While Nia slept in 1A, a team of auditors from Toussaint Ventures was already descending upon the Aries Atlantic headquarters in Atlanta. Nia hadn't just bought the airline on a whim, she had been tracking its inefficiencies for 6 months. The incident with Rick Holloway wasn't the cause of the purchase, but it was the catalyst for the purge she had planned. 6 hours later, Flight 402 touched down at Heathrow. As the plane taxied to the gate, Nia didn't rush to get her bag. She waited. The replacement captain, a respectful man named Captain Evans, who had been pulled from a standby lounge, came out of the cockpit to personally thank her. An honor to have you aboard, ma'am, Evans said. Thank you, Captain. Smooth landing, Nia replied. I need you to do me a favor. When we get to the gate, keep the seatbelt sign on for an extra minute. I need to address the crew. Of course. Nia stood up and walked to the galley. The flight attendants, Sarah, a young man named David, and the purser, Elena, gathered around, looking nervous. They knew the owner was on board, and they expected heads to roll. Nia looked at them. She saw the fatigue in their eyes, the fear. Relax, Nia said, leaning against the galley cart. I'm not here to fire you. I'm here to ask you a question. They stayed silent. How long has Captain Holloway been a problem? Sarah glanced at the purser. The purser looked at the floor. Speak freely, Nia said. Off the record, no retaliation. In fact, if you lie to me, that's when we'll have a problem. Sarah took a breath. 3 years. He touches us when he moves past in the galley. He makes comments about our weight. He screams if his coffee isn't exactly 180 degrees. We filed reports, but he's a senior captain, Nia finished. And the chief pilot plays golf with him. Yes, ma'am, Sarah said quietly. Last month, he made a trainee cry because she didn't smile enough during the safety demo. He told her she looked too ethnic for first class. Nia's jaw tightened. And HR did nothing? HR said it was a personality clash and sent the trainee to remedial hospitality training, Sarah said bitterly. Nia nodded. She pulled out her phone and typed a quick note. Fire the VP of HR. Today. Okay, Nia said. That changes today. Sarah, you handled the situation with Beatrice well. You tried to de-escalate. You followed protocol until you were overruled. I'm promoting you to senior purser for the European division. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. Ma'am? I've only been flying for 4 years. I don't have the seniority. I own the company, Nia said with a small smile. I decide what seniority means. You have integrity. That's worth more than years logged. You'll be in charge of retraining the cabin crews on conflict resolution. And I want you to head a committee on workplace harassment. She looked at the other two. You all get a 20% raise, effective this pay period. Consider it hazard pay for dealing with Holloway. David looked like he might faint. Thank you, Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet, Nia said, her face hardening. I expect Aries Atlantic to be the gold standard. No more looking the other way. If you see something, you report it to my office directly. I'm setting up a whistleblower hotline that goes to my personal legal team. Understand? Yes, ma'am, they said in unison. Good. Now open the doors. I have a meeting. Nia walked off the plane, her hoodie pulled up, blending into the crowd of passengers. But waiting for her at the end of the jet bridge was not a driver, but a man in a sharp suit holding a tablet. It was her chief legal officer, Marcus Thorne, who she called Mark to avoid the pretension. Welcome to London, boss, Mark said. Rough flight? I bought the airline, Mark. I saw the wire. Aggressive. I like it. What's the play? The play is Rick Halloway, Nia said, walking fast toward immigration. He threatened me. He assaulted me. But more importantly, he's a liability. I want his file pulled. Not the HR file, the real file. The flight operations quality assurance data. Every mistake he's ever made in the cockpit, every check ride he barely passed, every time he exceeded bank angles or came in too hot on a landing. Mark tapped on his tablet. FOCOW data is usually protected by union agreements, Nia. We can't use it for disciplinary action unless it's a safety violation. He kicked the owner off the plane because of her race and clothes, Mark. He claimed I was a security risk to the FAA. That's a federal offense if he filed a false report. If he lied to the police, the union protections are void. Mark smiled, a shark-like grin. He filed the report. We just got a copy from O'Hare PD. He stated you were belligerent and potentially intoxicated. Nia stopped walking. Passengers flowed around her like water around a rock. Intoxicated? That's what he wrote. Nia laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've been sober for 5 years, and I have the blood work from my physical yesterday to prove it. He perjured himself. Then we have him, Mark said. What do you want to do? He's landing in London tomorrow, Nia said. He's deadheading over on the evening flight to try and plead his case to the European Regional Director. He thinks he can smooth this over with the Old Boys Club. He doesn't know you fired the Regional Director 10 minutes ago. Mark checked his watch. Exactly, Nia said. Meet me at the Aries Atlantic Crew Lounge in Terminal 3 tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. and bring the FAA liaison. We're going to have a little performance review. The Aries Atlantic Crew Lounge at Heathrow was usually a sanctuary. It had plush recliners, free coffee, and a view of the tarmac. Pilots and flight attendants used it to decompress away from the prying eyes of passengers. At 8 a.m., the mood was funereal. News had spread. The acquisition was global news. CNN was running the headline, Tech mogul Nia Toussaint acquires Aries Atlantic in surprise hostile takeover. Rick Halloway walked into the lounge, looking like a man who hadn't slept in a week, even though it had only been 24 hours. He was wearing his uniform, but it looked disheveled. He scanned the room, looking for his allies. He was looking for Captain Miller or Chief Pilot Henderson. Instead, he found the lounge empty, except for a single long table set up in the center of the room. Sitting at the center of the table was Nia Toussaint. She was no longer in a hoodie. She was wearing a bespoke navy suit that cost more than Rick's car. To her right was Mark, her lawyer. To her left was a stern-looking woman with glasses, Inspector Davis from the UK Civil Aviation Authority, alongside a representative from the FAA via video link on a large screen. Rick stopped at the door. What is this? Come in, Mr. Halloway, Nia said. Sit down. I want my union rep, Rick said, his voice trembling but defiant. I know my rights. This is an ambush. Your union rep is on the phone, Mark said, pointing to a speakerphone. Say hello, Bob. Rick, the voice of Bob, the senior union steward, came through the line. He sounded exhausted. I've seen the video, Rick. Rick froze. What video? The passenger in 2A, Nia said calmly. A Mr. Cheng. He recorded the entire interaction. He sent it to our corporate office this morning. It's in 4K resolution, Rick. The audio is crystal clear. We can hear you lie about the seat booking. We can hear you lie about the security threat. And we can hear you tell me that I don't belong in first class. Rick slumped into the chair opposite them. It was a stressful situation. I misjudged it. I'm willing to issue a formal apology. I can take a suspension. A month? 2 months? Nia clasped her hands. Rick, you seem to think this is a negotiation. This is an autopsy. She slid a thick folder across the table. We pulled your flight data, Nia said. Do you know what we found? Rick stared at the folder. You can't use that. We can when there is an active investigation into gross misconduct and endangerment of a flight, Mark interjected. 3 months ago, Nia read from a paper. Approach into Denver. You ignored a wind shear warning. You came in 20 knots too fast. You floated half the runway. You blamed it on the first officer in the report, didn't you? Rick didn't answer. 6 months ago, Nia continued. Sao Paulo. You were recorded on the cockpit voice recorder, making derogatory comments about female air traffic controllers. You called them incompetent skirts. Locker room talk, Rick muttered. It's private. It's a professional workspace, Nia snapped. And then there's yesterday. You filed a police report claiming I was intoxicated. That is a criminal offense, Rick. Filing a false report. Rick looked at his union rep on the phone. Bob, do something. Rick, Bob said, his voice heavy. They have the blood tests. They have the video. They have the manifest. You lied to the police. The union can't defend criminal conduct. You're on your own. The silence that followed was heavy and final. Here is what is going to happen, Nia said, leaning forward. You are going to resign. Immediately. You will surrender your wings and your ID badge right now. And my pension? Rick asked, his eyes wet. I'm 2 years away from full retirement. I have a mortgage. I have alimony. You should have thought about that before you tried to bully a black woman out of the seat she paid for, Nia said coldly. But I'm not a monster. You'll get what you vested, but you will never fly for Ares Atlantic again. And given the report we are filing with the FAA regarding your false statements to law enforcement, I doubt you'll be flying a crop duster, let alone a commercial jet. Rick looked at Inspector Davis from the CAA. She nodded. We will be reviewing your licensure reciprocally with the FAA, Mr. Holloway. Character issues of this magnitude usually result in a permanent revocation of medical clearance due to psychological instability. Psychological instability? Rick shouted, standing up. I am the sanest man here. You're just a tech book. Sit down, the FAA rep on the screen barked. Nia didn't flinch. You're proving my point, Rick. You have an anger problem. You have an ego problem. And you have a problem with authority when it doesn't look like you. She slid a pen across the table. Sign the resignation, Rick. Or we press charges for the false police report, and I sue you personally for defamation. I have excellent lawyers. I can keep you in court until you're selling that alimony house to pay legal fees. Rick looked at the pen. He looked at Nia. He saw no mercy in her eyes, only the reflection of his own destruction. He picked up the pen. His hand shook as he signed the paper. Richard Holloway. Badge, Mark said, holding out his hand. Rick unclipped his ID. He threw it on the table. Epaulettes, Nia said. Rick slowly unbuttoned the 4 stripes from his shoulders. The gold braid that signified his rank, his identity, his power. He placed them on the table next to the ID. He looked smaller without them. Just an old, angry man in a polyester shirt. Get out, Nia said. Rick Holloway turned and walked to the door. He paused, looking back. You ruined my life over a seat, he said. No, Rick, Nia said, picking up the gold epaulets and dropping them into the trash can next to her. You ruined your life. I just bought the airline to make sure you couldn't ruin anyone else's. He left. Nia let out a long breath. She slumped slightly in her chair. You okay, boss? Mark asked. I hate bullies, Nia said, rubbing her temples. I really hate bullies. Well, Mark said, checking his tablet. You just fired the biggest one. But we have a problem. What now? The video from Mr. Cheng? It leaked. It's on Twitter. It has 10 million views in 2 hours. People are calling for a boycott of Ares Atlantic until they know what you're going to do. The stock price is wobbling. Nia stood up, straightening her jacket. The warrior was back. Set up a press conference, Nia said. In the hangar, put a plane behind me. I'm not going to hide. We're going to turn this into the biggest rebranding in aviation history. And what's the angle? Mark asked. Nia smiled. The angle is simple. The sky belongs to everyone. And tell Sarah to get ready. I'm bringing her on stage with me. The fallout was not a ripple. It was a tsunami. While Nia Toussaint was preparing for the press conference that would define her career, Beatrice van der Hoven was preparing for the evening she believed would reaffirm her status. Beatrice had landed in London, fuming but convinced that the world would right itself once she stepped into her natural habitat. The Royal Charity Gala at the Savoy. She wore a vintage emerald gown, the cost of which could have fed a small nation. She had spent 2 hours in hair and makeup, instructing the stylist to hide the stress lines that the horrid little flight had caused her. She checked her phone. It was strange. She had 30 missed calls from her husband, Charles. She assumed he was calling to apologize for not being there to greet her. She ignored them. She needed to make an entrance. The ballroom at the Savoy was glittering with chandeliers and the cream of British society. Beatrice walked to the entrance, her chin held high, ready to offer her cheek to the event organizer, Lady Pembroke. "Name?" the security guard asked, blocking her path with a velvet rope. Beatrice blinked. "I am Beatrice van der Hoven. I am a platinum donor. Lady Pembroke is expecting me." The guard looked down at his clipboard. He didn't look up. "I'm sorry, madam. You are not on the list." "Don't be ridiculous," Beatrice scoffed, her voice rising. "I bought a table. Check again." Suddenly, Lady Pembroke appeared. She was a woman of immense grace, usually warm and welcoming. Tonight, she looked at Beatrice as if she were a stain on the carpet. "Lady Pembroke," Beatrice exclaimed, reaching out. "Tell this brute who I am." "We know exactly who you are, Beatrice," Lady Pembroke said, her voice cutting through the noise of the lobby. She held up a tablet. On the screen was a paused video. It was the footage from Flight 402. The caption read, entitled, "Billionaire Abuses Crew and Black Owner of Airline. Number Boycott van der Hoven." Beatrice froze. That is taken out of context." "Is it?" Lady Pembroke asked. "Because I hear you screaming at a young woman to know her place." "The board of the charity met an hour ago, Beatrice. We cannot accept money from someone with your values. Your donation has been returned. Your table has been given to a local youth shelter." "You can't do this," Beatrice whispered, noticing the heads turning. People were whispering. Phones were raised. They were filming her again. "It's done," Lady Pembroke said. "Please leave before security escorts you out." Beatrice turned, her face burning. She rushed to the exit, her heels clicking on the marble. She burst out into the cool London night and fumbled for her phone to call Charles. She needed him to fix this. She needed him to sue them all. He answered on the first ring. "Charles, you won't believe how I've been treated. I want you to call the lawyers." "Beatrice, shut up." Charles's voice was unrecognizable. It was cold, dead. Beatrice stopped walking. "Excuse me? I saw the video, Beatrice." Everyone saw the video. The board of directors saw the video. "So? It's just a silly internet thing." "It's not just a thing," Charles roared. "Our stock dropped 6% today. Van der Hoven Steel is trending on Twitter because people think I share your repulsive views. I've been doing damage control for 6 hours. Charles, surely you can't be blaming me." "I'm not blaming you, Beatrice. I'm divorcing you." The silence on the street was deafening. A black cab drove by, splashing a puddle of dirty rainwater onto the hem of her emerald gown. You can't," she stammered. "I can." The prenup had a morality clause regarding public reputation, damage to the company. "You triggered it. The lawyers will be in touch. Don't come home." The line went dead. Beatrice van der Hoven stood alone on the pavement outside the Savoy. She was wet, she was humiliated, and for the first time in 40 years, she was entirely, utterly powerless. The karma she had ordered had finally been served, and it was a cold, bitter dish. The next morning, Hangar 4 at Heathrow was transformed. The massive sliding doors were open, revealing the gray London sky. Parked in the center of the hangar was the Boeing 787 Dreamliner from the previous day. But something was different. Overnight, a team of vinyl wrap specialists had worked feverishly. The old Ares Atlantic logo, a golden ram that symbolized aggression and dominance, was gone. In its place was a new logo, a stylized, soaring dove in gradient blues and purples. And the name on the fuselage had been changed. Horizon Air. Hundreds of reporters sat on folding chairs, cameras trained on the podium. The buzz was electric. The world wanted to see the woman who bought an airline in mid-air to win an argument. Nia Toussaint walked onto the stage. She wasn't wearing a hoodie today, nor a severe power suit. She wore a simple, elegant dress in the company's new blue. She looked approachable, human, and incredibly dangerous to anyone who underestimated her. Standing beside her was Sarah Jenkins, the flight attendant. Sarah looked terrified, but Nia held her hand firmly. "Good morning," Nia said. The microphone didn't screech. The sound was perfect. "I am Nia Toussaint. Yesterday, I boarded a flight hoping for 8 hours of sleep. Instead, I received a wake-up call." She paused, looking at the cameras. "For too long, the aviation industry has operated on a caste system. We categorized people by the color of their credit card, and tragically, sometimes by the color of their skin. We allowed captains to act like kings and treated passengers like cattle. We prioritized status over dignity." She gestured to the plane behind her. "That ends today. I did not buy this airline to make a profit this quarter. I bought it to prove a point. You cannot put a price tag on respect." Nia pressed a clicker. The screen behind her lit up with the new company manifesto. "Effective immediately, Ares Atlantic is dead. We are now Horizon Air, and we are implementing the Open Sky Doctrine. 1, Nia listed, her voice ringing out. "Zero tolerance for discrimination from crew or passengers. If you abuse my staff, you don't fly. If you abuse your fellow passengers, you don't fly. I don't care if you are a senator or a celebrity." 2, she continued, "We are dissolving the seniority protection for pilots who have a record of harassment. We are reopening every HR complaint from the last 10 years. If you are a bully, update your resume, because you don't work here anymore." And 3, Nia turned to Sarah. "I want to introduce you to Sarah Jenkins. Yesterday, she was a junior flight attendant who was threatened with termination because she tried to do the right thing. Today, she is the Chief Customer Experience Officer of Horizon Air." The crowd gasped. Sarah's eyes went wide. "Sarah will lead a board composed of flight attendants, gate agents, and baggage handlers," Nia announced. "The people who actually do the work will tell management how to run the airline, because they know better than anyone what kindness looks like." The applause started slowly, then built into a roar. It wasn't polite applause. It was the sound of people who had been waiting years to hear someone say that decency mattered more than dollars. Nia leaned into the mic. "To Mr. Holloway, and anyone like him watching this, you thought the sky belonged to you because you had the uniform, but the sky is big enough for everyone. You just have to know how to share it." 3 months later, the rain in Chicago was just as cold as it had been on that fateful day. Rick Holloway sat in the driver's seat of a shuttle bus for the park and fly lot on the outskirts of O'Hare. It was the only job he could get. The FAA investigation had been ruthless. Nia Toussaint's legal team hadn't bluffed. They had provided the blood tests, the video evidence, and the flight data logs. The FAA had revoked his medical certificate on grounds of psychological unfitness and impulsive behavior. His pilot's license was suspended indefinitely. Rick adjusted the rearview mirror. He looked older. The silver hair that used to look distinguished now just looked messy. He wore a cheap polyester vest that smelled of stale cigarettes. "Hey driver," a voice shouted from the back of the bus. "Turn the heat up, will ya? It's freezing back here." Rick's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I'm doing my best," he muttered. "What?" the passenger yelled. "Speak up, old man." "I said, I'm doing my best," Rick snapped. "Watch the attitude, buddy, or I'll report you to your manager," the passenger scoffed. Rick flinched. The irony tasted like ash in his mouth. He pulled the bus up to the curb at Terminal 5. As he opened the doors to let the passengers out to drag their heavy bags into the rain, a shadow passed over the bus. Rick looked up through the wet windshield. Taking off from runway 27, R was a massive Boeing 787. The engines roared with a power he used to control, a power he used to abuse. The fuselage gleamed in the gray light, the purple and blue dove on the tail fin cutting through the clouds. It was Horizon Air Flight 402 to London. Rick watched it climb. He watched the landing gear retract smoothly. He knew exactly what was happening in the cockpit right now. He knew the checklist. He knew the feeling of the thrust. But he was on the ground, gripping a sticky steering wheel, while the woman he had tried to humiliate was soaring at 30,000 feet, charting a course he could no longer follow. He watched until the plane was just a speck in the clouds, disappearing into a horizon he would never touch again. "Move it, driver!" Someone honked behind him. Rick Holloway sighed, put the bus in gear, and drove slowly back to the parking lot. High above the Atlantic, the cabin was peaceful. Nia Toussaint sat in seat 1A. She had her laptop open, reviewing the quarterly earnings. Horizon Air was up 40%. The kindness campaign had gone viral, attracting millions of customers who were tired of being treated poorly. "Excuse me, Madam Chairwoman?" Nia looked up. A young flight attendant, a trainee, stood there holding a tray. "Yes? I just wanted to say," the trainee stammered, her hands shaking slightly. "I watched the video. The one from the old days, and I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to be a flight attendant since I was a little girl. But I was scared of people like that, Captain. You made me feel safe to wear this uniform." Nia closed her laptop. She smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached her eyes. "That is the best profit report I've heard all day," Nia said. "What's your name?" "Maya." "Well, Maya," Nia said, "welcome to the skies. You belong here." Nia turned back to the window. The sun was setting over the curvature of the earth, painting the clouds in gold and violet. It was beautiful. It was vast. And finally, it was open. And that is the story of how one arrogant mistake cost a pilot his wings and gave birth to a revolution in the skies. It's a powerful reminder that no matter how much authority you think you have, character is the only currency that matters. Rick Holloway and Beatrice thought their status gave them the right to look down on others. But they learned the hard way that when you try to push someone down, you might just be pushing them to buy the whole plane. In the end, Nia Toussaint proved that true power isn't about how loud you can yell, but about standing your ground with dignity and having the receipts to back it up. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more stories like this. Have you ever dealt with an entitled passenger or a rude employee while traveling? I want to hear your horror stories. Drop a comment down below. I read every single one, and maybe your story will be the next one I tell. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. We post new drama and karma stories every week. Thanks for watching, fly safe, and remember, be kind, because you never know who you're sitting next to.